Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Kevin. Ned and I will go through an overview of the plan and orient you to help you use the plan effectively. Greenhouse gas emissions have been building up in our atmosphere since the start of the Industrial Revolution. They can persist for decades or even hundreds of years. So while we begin immediately to halt and draw down greenhouse gas emissions through mitigation, we need to adapt to living with the impacts of climate disruption for a long time. Our plan empowers local leaders to manage the avoidable and avoid the unmanageable. Climate action must be rooted in equity with the well-being of people at its center. This plan is based on an understanding of the challenges we face as a region, like sources of greenhouse gas emissions shown in this pie chart, or climate-related hazards Ned will talk about. These same challenges affect the whole region, although not necessarily in the same way. The strategies for addressing these regional challenges are tailored to leverage the strengths of municipalities. Municipalities can lead by example, encourage others to take actions, and enact policies that address climate change. The plan proposes local solutions to this global problem. Leveraging this economy of scale this plan can help municipalities skip ahead to choose meaningful actions appropriate for the community with confidence that they will have regional impact. Our region reduced emissions by 7% between 2010 and 2015. We need to triple or even quadruple this rate of change in order to reach our targets. We need to kick into high gear now. Starting from our most recent greenhouse gas inventory in 2015, we used modeling to calculate emissions reductions for target years 2030, 2040, and 2050. These colored wedges show that emissions must be abated in every sector of our economy, especially in energy generation, energy used in buildings, and in transportation. With known technologies and available data, we know it is possible to reduce emissions 80% by the year 2050. However, the path to net zero requires innovation and new capacity. Net zero, which means we add no new emissions to the atmosphere, is our goal. Our targets show a path to cutting emissions in half by the year 2030, on our way to reducing emissions 80% by 2050. This is all from our base year of 2005. Our plan includes 8 mitigation strategies, objectives to reach these targets. Demonstrate leadership to reduce emissions, decarbonize energy sources, optimize building energy, implement clean energy policies, decarbonize transportation by eliminating internal combustion engines, reduce vehicle miles traveled, manage water and waste sustainably, sustain ecosystems to sequester carbon. To demonstrate how this plan works, I'll focus on the objective, reduce vehicle miles traveled. In plain speak, that means driving less, using transit more, and active transportation more. Let's take a look at a sample of the strategies from our plan. Municipalities can enact zoning codes and make transit more accessible to more people and businesses. They can lead by creating safe paths and infrastructure for walking and biking, and they can encourage others to do so as well. Municipalities can encourage walking, biking, and transit use through education, incentives, and collaboration. The plan also rates each strategy for relative cost and effort, and we describe how each strategy can lead to equitable outcomes for vulnerable residents, as well as how that strategy relates to a more resilient future. When we mitigate emissions, new technologies and nature-based solutions also contribute to thriving, resilient communities. Mitigation and adaptation actions are interrelated and interdependent.
To mitigate emissions, we're tracing greenhouse gases from their source all the way to solution. And that's one variable. Building resilience and adaptation, we have to understand hazards and the way that climate amplifies them, And we have to understand how hazards affect people, places, and things that we value. So those are a lot of variables. Consider one example. We all have to get from home to work. If a flood takes out a road or cuts off access to fuel, critical services will be disrupted. One hazard can affect many assets, people, and economic impacts. Building resilience means improving everyday capacity, for example, by accommodating stormwater and designing transportation systems that can function after heavy rains. The resilience portions of this plan emphasize climate-smart policy and building back better, creating equitable opportunity and benefits in the process. Using the steps to resilience, we inventory the plethora of things that we care about and the ways that climate can exacerbate a multitude of hazards. We recommend this assessment process be repeated town by town, but to help address high priority impacts, the plan does provide adaptation strategies linked to common ways that flooding, excessive heat, and drought can impact quality of life in the region. The goal of this plan is for each community to persistently, equitably increase resilience to emerging climate-related hazards. That's an iterative long-term process. Planning for climate change and making the necessary changes to prepare people and protect homes, transportation systems, and utilities requires coordination, as all the speakers today have emphasized at all levels of our society. The adaptation targets in the plan are climate resilience governance by 2030, using the decisions and strategies emphasized in the plan. Our target for 2040 is to build resilience across jurisdictions, leveraging federal and state support. By 2050, the Chicago region could be home to cohesive and resilient communities. Hundreds of regional experts categorize the strategies in this plan, yielding 5 overarching objectives that are widely accepted in adaptation science and practice. Engage and educate, incorporate equity and inclusion, collaborate and build capacity, enact plans and policies, and adapt operations and investments. For each objective, we highlight municipal strategies linked to the criteria that Edith already described, including roles, lead, encourage, and act, costs, and the anticipated effort required to enact each strategy. Our research and engagements in preparing for this plan focused attention on issues of concern across the region, but each municipality can address its own climate-related risk using the steps to resilience. The heart of this framework is engagement and iteration, denoted by the gears in the center of this schematic, representing all the steps. Engaging people at all stages is essential for incorporating equity into building municipal level capacity toward our goal of persistent, equitable adaptation. That challenge of sustained, inclusive engagement extends to every level of government. Planning organizations and councils of government can support municipal decisions. We can move to the next slide. State governments can support those regional entities, and the federal apparatus can support state government. When all these levels are aligned, sustained adaptation can be achieved. Climate is a crisis today because it's been so long in coming and people have been so slow to respond. The emissions of today will be magnified as huge problems tomorrow. As Edith has said, we have to kick into high gear now. The purpose of this collaborative regional plan is to accelerate climate action at a scale and speed that no one municipality could do alone. The lineup of speakers here today demonstrates the kind of coordination we need to cultivate. The attendees of this rollout event are well positioned to help municipal leaders immediately take actions to reduce emissions and build resilience.